Hello, true crime family. Wow, what an affidavit, right? How did this guy make so many mistakes? It's just crazy. I'm just going to start with Brian and the trip that he chose to take back to Pennsylvania. Many people are asking, why did Brian and his dad take the route they took? If the quickest way would have been to go to Idaho, Montana, North Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, right into Pennsylvania, right? But the route that that he and his dad took, was Idaho, Oregon, Arizona, Colorado, Kansas, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, right into Pennsylvania. And I truly believe they chose this route because it's winter time. And, you don't want to travel up north because it can be quite difficult at times because of the weather. And we did have a few storms. So I think that is the real reason they chose to drop down and go the southern route back home. It's a little longer, but, if you get caught in snowstorms up north, it could be way longer. So I think that's why they did. Let's see. Talked about that. So, we know now that the DNA was 99.998% accurate, right? And that it really truly would be quite difficult for that DNA to belong to someone else. The DNA came from a sheath. A fingerprint on the button of the sheath matched his dad's DNA. So I was wrong about the DNA in one of my past videos, so I wanted to clarify that. I was also wrong about the FBI not telling anyone that he was traveling across the country, and that it was just coincidence that he got pulled over twice. I did see where the FBI did have that done, so I'm eating crow. There have been many inconsistencies with the roommates. At first, Ellie said they were on the first floor, the bottom level, and that we found wasn't true. Now, DM is up on the same floor as Xana and Ethan. It is in the affidavit that she opened her bedroom door 3 times. She heard Kaylee and her dog, she thought, upstairs, so she opened her door then. Then she heard crying, and the 3rd time she opened the door was when the suspect walked by. She reported to law enforcement that she said he was approximately 5'10", bushy eyebrows, had a face mask, and was dressed in all black, and walked right out the sliding door. Reports say Xana and Ethan were first, but I don't think that's true, because if he saw her and walked by her and went out the door, I don't know how that would work. And plus, the sheath was found next to Maddie, so I think he started up on the 3rd floor. They're saying she also backed into the room and called friends, and why didn't she call 911? Well, I'm not going to throw any shade her way. We don't know the whole story, and we'll get the rest of the story during court, right? But I'm going to go over this one more time. DM woke at 4 p.m. She thought Kaylee was playing with her dog. She looked out the door, okay? And that Kaylee and her dog were up on the 3rd floor. A short time later, she thought she heard someone say, "Is there someone here?" But that noise could have been from Xana's room, right? But DM opened her door A second time, she heard Xana crying, and she thought she heard someone say, "It's going to be okay, I'm going to help you." Did she really hear that? I'm just asking. At 4:17, security cameras on King Road captured a whimper and a loud thump and a dog barking. DM opened her door the third time. The figure walking towards her. She was in a frozen type phase. Let's see. The incident with Kaylee had to have started on the third floor. DoorDash arrived around 4 a.m. and we know the sheep was found by beside Maddie. So was DM just terrified and that he was going to come back? Let's see. Brian cell phone, oh gosh, can't read my own writing. Brian's cell phone also pinged 12 times near 11:22 in the late evenings and nighttime. Was he watching through the windows? May have been. Okay, so many have said that Brian is so educated. He was a PhD student. He was a teacher's assistant. He applied with the Palmer Police Department for an internship. In this semester that he was supposedly in, he was studying DNA and forensics. How could he have made so many mistakes? Well, my oldest son, he's very intelligent. He has 2 master's degrees, and he's in management he's an engineer, and he's in management at a company, and he has no common sense sometimes. And he also has no street smarts. He has no, he has never been around criminals. And that's the same with Brian. I mean, I'm thankful my son has never been around criminals, but you know, I can speak from experience that when you're exposed to those kind of things and you're street smart because that's the way you had to grow up, that adds a lot to it. You know, book smart doesn't mean everything. Brian did not grow up in a criminal world, and eventually he also had no common sense. He thought he was above everyone with his intelligence, and he probably was, but he definitely was lacking in other areas. The other thing I wanted to mention, I don't know if anyone's mentioned this, but Brian lived in Washington State, and he crossed over into Idaho. So because he crossed state lines, this is also a federal case. The other thing I want to mention is, you know, everyone was like, Ted Bundy was so much smarter than this Brian dude. Well, he may have been. He did pass his boards for a law degree. But listen, we have came a long way, baby, when it comes to, oh gosh, you know, criminology, let's say. We've came a long way with forensics and DNA and, you know, telephone tracking and all that good stuff. Ted Bundy, you know, if we had cell phones back then, I'll bet he would have been caught a lot sooner because, you know, we could have, you know, tracked his pings and things like. There's so much more that we have now today, and we can thank, you know, law enforcement in Idaho, Chief Fry for doing all the right things. I'm so proud of them, and I'm so proud of the FBI, and I'm shouting out to the FBI to go up to Truckee, California, please, and look into Kaylee's case if you're not. So what's going to get this guy? I mean, this guy's done. He's history, okay? Brian man, yeah. So they have his DNA, and there is no way, I can't even imagine how they can't find any DNA in that car. Also, I think there will be DNA in his house. Excuse me. I'm not sure what the motive is. Maybe he had a fantasy of what it was like to be a criminal and get away with it. Maybe it was a sexual fantasy, although I know there was not a sexual attack, but, the knife could be a part of him. I'm just saying. And it could be a sexual fantasy, or it could be a rejection from one of those people. And, no fault of these girls, because these girls are drop dead gorgeous, right? And they're just living their best life, being girls. And, I'm sure they had males hitting on them at all times. They probably, if they did slight him, they didn't mean to slight him. They probably didn't even remember if that did happen, which just breaks my heart. Gosh, every time I see Kaylee's dad and her mom, it just breaks my heart. You can just see, you can tell there's a little bit of relief in their face, but you can just see the pain. But I'm so happy they have each other, and I'm so happy they're supporting one another. You can plainly see that. And what a wonderful family. And this is horrible that this happened to this family. It's horrible that it happened to any of the families, but we see them so much more often than the other families. But man, that doesn't take away from any of their pain, right? So I just wanted to say game over just with the sheath, right? The sheath, right? And the knife wounds, I'm sure they match the size of that knife that fits into that sheath, right? So just on those two things alone, I don't know, man. He's buried. I think when he went out, wherever he came out of, and DM opened her door. Now remember, her door doesn't open out. Her door opens in. Okay, so she could have opened that door in, stood in the doorway when she saw this person in black with a mask on, and he probably had the knife in his hand, and maybe had some red stuff on him. Who knows? Because without curtains on those windows, and I think they said it was a full moon, it could have been bright enough in there for her to see that stuff, and she froze like she said, and that probably saved her life, because I believe that Brian had tunnel vision, because at this point he just he had his adrenaline flowing on super high, right? And the only thing you're worried about at this time, the only thing that he's worried about at this time, I'm assuming, is his danger. He's like, I did all this, now I have to get out of here. And he could have very well had tunnel vision. He saw that door, he was making his way to that door, and he never even seen DM, which I'm very thankful for. I'm thankful she didn't scream. I'm thankful the door didn't open out, because we could have very well had a fifth victim. And I'm thankful to the Lord that we don't. Let's see. The speed and adrenaline was maxed out. The only thing he's seen was the exit door, especially if she didn't move. Okay, some say he is going to defend himself. I don't think so. I don't believe that. No way. I think his family's going to push him to use that lawyer that was appointed to him. He'll probably get found guilty, but he still has an appeal that he can do. I just am so thankful that law enforcement kept their mouths shut, even though we wanted information. I totally get it, but oh man, this is like an amazing case. The Chief Fry, I can't say enough about. He called all the right people. FBI sent their A-team in. I'm so proud of them. Okay, so this is the other thing I kind of want to touch on. So Brian had been picked on his whole life. He couldn't stand up for himself. He was told by everyone that he was special all his life because he was so intelligent, right? He never really grew up and matured. He's getting off on this, I think. I really think he's getting off on this. He's never been out of the academia world. He never worked in the real world. Yeah, sure. He had a job as a security officer at his high school. He's got a job with his professor as a teacher's assistant. He has not worked outside of academia. So he never had a job at McDonald's with real people. He never worked on the docks, with real people. So I just think it was really hard for him to understand people, and it was really hard for people to understand him. So the other thing I want to talk about, so we know that Brian on 11/18 went to DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles, and had that plate changed from Pennsylvania to Washington, and everybody's saying that he did that because he was trying to, hide something. But I'm not sure about that because he had that plate changed on 11/18, and his birthday was on 11/19. So maybe it was going to expire. I'm not sure about that. But if you go look at the Carfax, when he did apply for that Washington State plate, from July when he left Pennsylvania, he left and came out to Washington State, right? It took 2,500 miles to come across the country. Okay, so from July to November, if you go look at that Carfax, he put 10,000 miles on that car. That's a lot of miles when you're not driving that far to go to school, right? So what was he doing with those 10,000 miles? Now, I just kind of want to bring this up, okay? And I'm going to throw it out there. I know that, we can make anything we want to fit our profile, the way we think it might be. Now, but this guy really has some good information, and I'm not saying that this is true, but it's something to think about, I think. I'm not saying this is what happened. I'm just saying that True Crime Time did this video, and I just think it's very interesting, and I'm going to touch on some of it. All this part of my video the credit goes to True Crime Time. You should go over and watch them. I don't get to watch very many, and this is the first video I've seen from him, and this is really interesting. So here we go. The kudos goes to True Crime Time, okay? Brian could be responsible for other deaths, right? So on June the 13th, possibly 14th, 14 months ago, there was a lady in Oregon, and we'll talk about that. And then again, August the 13th, 2021, a Travis and Jamie Lynn also. So June the 13th, August the 13th, and now there's a November the 13th that I'm going to talk about, which was Xana and Ethan and Kaylee and Maddie. Okay, he's a criminology student. Okay, so it's harder to figure out if they are connected, if this person did it, okay? Maybe it's 1 hour away from where he lived. Let's see. Let me see. I want to try and get the 2 crime scenes were also... Okay, so the older lady that lived in Oregon, and she was, she lost her life on June the 13th, 2020. She lived in a very secluded area, just like 1122. That was on a dead-end road, right? And Travis and Jamie, now Travis lost his life, but Jamie did, she survived. And that was August the 13th, 2021. That was in Oregon as well. And then we have November the 13th, 2022, which was 1122 King Road. So all 3 of these places were secluded areas, and they were all done in with a sharp-edged weapon, a knife. Okay, so we know that there was some brutal attacks with the girls, and they had different injuries. One may have been worse than the other. He went to the 2nd floor even though he knew there was a man there. Let's see. Brian, okay, so Brian's method of operation. He was spooked and fled the scene. Brian's Instagram account, Brian's Instagram account, every account he was following had a logical connection to this kind of crime. Okay, we'll get into that a little more. He gets into it a little more. There was a promo video that had products. It's called Goon Tape, and it's this really sticky tape. Now, if he didn't cut himself, he had gloves on, we knew that. And if Brian didn't cut himself, he may have used this Goon Tape because it's supposed to be very, very sticky and help you hold on to things so that your hand doesn't slip. And his account is linked to going to that account as well. There's bodybuilding accounts that he was following, kickboxing accounts, MMA. Training is about skill developing. And the one video that he is linked to, this guy at this site goes into this a lot deeper, but I'm just trying to touch on this, throwing it out there. So Brian went to this site that was teaching skill developing, and the guy said you don't have to win. You don't have to win every battle, just the ones that count. November the 11th, 2022. Why am I talking about that? So it begins to fighting video. Oh, okay. So he went to this website and it was a fighting video. So followers click on combat fights and they watch them. Brian could have had multiple accounts. He had there was a video on blade craft method, fighting with a knife, shows you how fast he can take someone down with a knife. His ability to surprise and attack Ethan was not aware and unleash the fury. That's what Brian could have done, this guy said, because he watched his accounts are linked to these videos that he watched. And it showed how you take someone down very quickly. He was interested in tactical gear and knives, fighting with weapons, crime and violence, what it's like to be in law enforcement. Brian trains for his crimes, obsession with the videos he follows. Neighbors said they heard loud noises and banging at night, and he could have been practicing these moves. Let's see. He was a hardcore vegan. Portland is the vegan capital. So this is going to be his connection to Portland, because this is what this fella's saying on his video, that Oregon is the vegan capital, and there are many restaurants. So this fella found that this Sandra, the first woman, I think she was 70 some years old, they think, this fella thinks that Brian was more nervous back then, that this would have maybe have been his first crime, so he was more nervous, so he picked on someone that was an easy target, a 76-year-old woman. They think that he met her at a vegan restaurant and followed her, and because she was so vulnerable, he took it out on her. He likes to fight, but likes the upper hand, and he likes to ambush people. He could have seen her at a vegan restaurant, followed her home. The home is private, and the backyard, no one to see, and there was a glass sliding door. Okay, so Travis and Jamie, I'm not going to mention their last name. You can go to his video and check it out. They were attacked at 3 a.m. with a knife while sleeping in bed. So was the older lady. Travis was pronounced deceased, and Jamie was stabbed 19 times, but she survived. So, they also think that there's vegan encounter at a restaurant, that he followed them and to their rural home. And this fella at the True Crime and Time, he has more details about the restaurant and how they could have hooked up at that restaurant. I'm just touching on this because it's not my find. Jamie, she had two fractured vertebrae, shoulder and skull fractures, nerve damage, and she was also had some issues with her face. An account, it's called Havoc, that Brian is connected to, went back to an account. It's called slimandhuskies.com. And it's also a vegan restaurant. All accounts are connected to Brian. Shopping the fake, he has like fake accounts, not using his regular name. He's got different names. There's a theme related to clothing, antisocial. There's an outdoor store in Virginia and Georgia. It's called that Havoc store that has all of this equipment. There's another, I'm going with this 10,000 miles, and I'm not saying these are hooked up, but this fella kind of is linking this true crime guy, that there was another person whose life was taken away in Georgia. Her name was Katie. I'm not going to say her last name. It was at Piedmont Park, Atlanta, Georgia. She was walking her dog. She was stabbed over 50 times. Identifying his victims from restaurants and breweries. This could be. She lived in an apartment, followed her home. He was watching her. She came out to walk the dog in Piedmont Park. And that's where she lost her life. Slim and Huskiers, 2.3 miles away from the park, the victims lived. 1 mile away from the Slim and Huskies. This brewery, Slim and Huskies, is linked to his account. He could have had rage-filled attack, maybe because, I don't know what his issues are. Let's see. He had targeted areas he would attack. Law enforcement said it was very angry and personal, so violent and rage-filled, thinking it could be more than one person. These are all connected. Medical directions, blunt force injuries, and stab wounds in the face and extremities. So this fellow believes that he has traveled to multiple states. If you look at his car facts from the registration, like I said, he had put 10,000 miles on, and we know it's only 2,500 miles from Pennsylvania. So go to True Crime Time. You'll probably understand a little bit more. I didn't want to take all of his information, but I thought it was interesting because many people think this isn't his first time, even though he made many, many, many mistakes. So thanks for watching. If you like the video, hit the like. Thanks to all my subscribers, and God bless.